To his left, Amit Menipaz, the General Manager of Structured Data from eBay Inc. Thank you for coming. And to his left, Nathalie Boulanger, right? Boulanger, spelled it right. The Director of Orange Startup Ecosystem from Orange in France. And Eran Shir from Yahoo, who is now the Head of Creative Innovation Center. How do I control my presentation? Thank you. Okay, so what we'll first do is like just a series of introduction. Everybody will talk about a bit about himself and what he's doing here in Israel regarding the scouting startup, which is the topic of our panel. After that, we'll have a short discussion about a few points that I raised, and it's an open discussion. We can change it through the way. And at the end, we'll open it for Q&A from the audience. So, here you go. Thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm Jamie Finn. I will say I'm formerly of Telefónica Digital, but if you would like to speak to somebody from Telefónica, we've got Doron right here in the front. I will talk about what we're doing here, or what I was doing here with Telefónica, because we have a big base here with over 100 engineers. We've acquired companies here in Israel. We've been part of the ecosystem for a long time, and I think the real investment and being present here with a full team, actually developing products here is the first step you have to take. If you're not part of the ecosystem, you're just kind of paying agents and wasting money, and I don't recommend that. So that's me. I'm Jamie, and happy to be here.
Afternoon, Amit Menipaz. I was country manager for eBay Israel for 5 years. I'm now based out of the Bay Area, responsible for structured data globally. As country manager, I worked very hard to expand the mandate of the Israeli teams by bringing startups and introducing them to the larger organization. Through that, we made an acquisition which added another center of excellence here. And we're constantly looking for other ways to engage in the ecosystem in Israel. And we're starting something new now to work on the area of big data with startups and with academia. So we can talk about that too.
Hi, Nathalie Boulanger. So I'm in charge of Orange Startup Ecosystem. Orange is a telco operating in 32 countries in Europe, Middle East and Africa. And of course, innovation is for us key. And in our very connected world, innovation has to be open. And I'm very pleased to lead this Orange Startup Ecosystem division. Israel is an innovation hub, and so we have to be here. And so we acquired a company, Orca, 5 years ago, dealing with the IPTV middleware. We also have a partnership with the Ben Gurion University, and of course we are scouting startups here in Israel. Roslyn Khalifa, I don't know if she is here in the room, is here part-time to do this scouting in Israel. And we also we launched a fund with Publicis, Orange Publicis Venture, and 1 year ago, and our first investment was here in Israel, my thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Eran Shir, and I run Yahoo's Creative Innovation Center, which is a group that is composed of both of the Tel Aviv R&D Center as well as other groups at Yahoo that aim to imagine and then build the next generation of personalization and advertising for Yahoo and its customers. Yahoo has an R&D presence in Israel that is both an R, really a research center in Haifa, where we have some great researchers doing some really hardcore stuff, and a D, an engineering center in Tel Aviv that I run that does a lot of the next generation projects. But in addition to that, we also have lots of partners. And actually, Yahoo has several strategic partners, especially in the advertising space here in Israel. And we actually have an executive here in the country working on these deals, among others, and trying to foster that in an active way.
So I'll just say I'm moderating this panel probably because we sponsor the event, but also I believe because I run AOL in Israel, and in 2014 we aim to open, I don't want to say accelerator, incubator, innovation hub, something which will help startups, which we're planning and thinking about this year. So I'm looking at this panel also as a student, to learn more about scouting startups in Israel. We have here 70 employees in Tel Aviv, R&D and product mainly, around video from 5 million, and also some NLP engineers, very talented. And this something that will open at the beginning of next year. And talking about these accelerators, incubators, I want to hear your thoughts regarding, everybody knows that there's an inflation in this area. Every week you hear about a new something that is opening. Do you think it's good for the startups? Also, although it looks good just, by the fact that there are more places for startups to start, but then the question is what's happening in the next stage, how you see it, and what do you think about it? Maybe you could take other...
All right, so Telefonica has a program called WAYRA, W-A-Y-R-A. It's a massive incubator that we run in about, I think it's 12 countries now. And they're countries where there aren't a lot of other incubators. There are places like Colombia, Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil. So there aren't hundreds of competitors. And we don't have them in the US and we don't have them in Israel. And the reason for that is because we don't feel that there's a need for yet another incubator. Because we can't bring anything special. In the countries where Telefonica operates, makes perfect sense for us to have incubators and to help and foster new businesses in those countries. So for me, I think you really have to look at the markets that you're operating in and decide if it makes sense and kind of what the outright goals are.
So we actually asked ourselves the same question when we were trying to decide what to do about potentially opening up this big data lab. And I agree that there are many, many, many alternatives now for startups. I think it's very hard, or I don't know if startups always ask themselves clearly the question, what am I getting out of this, other than an opportunity to be busy and meet some people. Potential money, but it's not always a straight line towards that. I think what we insisted on, at least what I insisted on, was that the unique, be very honest with what it is that you can bring to the startups, okay? And why it is that you're doing what you're doing. In our particular case, when we looked at eBay being involved in some way, shape, or form, the unique aspect that we have is their data. There's a global ecosystem of hundreds of markets and billions of transactions upon which all of us, can come up with all sorts of interesting ideas to generate value, insights at all levels of the stack, from the hardware through the operating systems and apps, right up to different applications. There's lots of room there to innovate. And we don't intend to be doing all the innovating ourselves. And Israel is, obviously I'm coming from here, so it's what I evangelize as well, a fantastic place for innovation. So the idea was to give other people a chance to play with us, with our data, not dictating what, but as long as they have an hypothesis, to come and learn together. And the intention here is to both nurture the natural ecosystem, and to the extent that it's something that is relevant to us, we would take it forward. And if not, we would at least help them prove whatever hypothesis is happening. And I think that's really the key. If the startup itself can understand how to get to that next step, and in most cases what they're trying to do is prove the value of their hypothesis, then it's a worthwhile thing to add.
Yes, Yes, I agree. Well, we have lots of incubators, accelerators here in Israel, but not only in Israel, and so it's easier for startups to start their business. But a startup, they need money, they need customers, they need talents. And I think as a telco, we can help them to find customers, so revenues and also talents. And that will help them to raise money after. So that's what we are looking at, helping them to commercialize their product and services.
I would say, first of all, I totally agree with what was said here about finding what is the right value that is unique for you, and only if you can find it and get, legal and corporate, etc., to release it with no strings attached, then go for it. I would say another thing. We all know that there's a Darwinian selection process going on with startups, right? There are lots of startups, but we know there's a Pareto distribution of returns, and only a handful of them will actually be relevant, not even successful, but even relevant. And then the question that you want to ask yourself always is, where are you in the Darwinian selection process? Like, are you building it in a way that will attract the best and brightest entrepreneurs? Because if you're building it in a way where it's like, it's something that people will come to after they weren't accepted to this, or they didn't get money from this guy, and it's like a parking slot, then it will never amount to much. I mean, it will be like a fun thing, they'll have demo day, etc., but it will never amount to much. So my recommendation, both on the startup side and the incubator side, is definitely identify what is your unique value, but identify it from the perspective of the great entrepreneur, and think why you'll be attractive to him, because that's the most important constituency. I think all of us have, as was said, really great amount of data and capabilities that we can open up and really accelerate. I mean, with all due respect to most accelerators that give you mentorship or we can actually accelerate stuff, like really change, like, an order of magnitude in the execution, which is really important, but you actually need to build it so that you can showcase that and attract people.
So if I want to summarize it, I think the main thing is like choosing the right startups for the corporation, or for that part of the corporation that you're part of. And I would say, I'm saying, or I want to say regarding to the startups that will come, that's like looking at AOL as your playground. Like, this is my wish. My wishful thought is that I will bring every asset in AOL to cooperate with this startup at early stage, if it's good enough, and we'll make sure that it is. And I think each one of you is saying this on its own corporate, and I agree.
I would just add one thing. I've seen a model that works really well in the media space, and probably plays to your point around the best entrepreneurs, is the graduate kind of model. Think of yourself as a graduate scheme of sorts. So Turner Broadcasting does an amazing job with this in San Francisco. So they have Turner Labs, and Turner Labs is almost exclusively graduates from the best accelerators. So they're kind of the next phase, and that's been super successful for them. If you look at their portfolio, it's amazing. It's actually a funny group, because they've got one guy from Apple, one guy from Google, and one guy from Microsoft who run it, and all they do is argue about who's best. But nonetheless, they've managed to get some amazing follow-ons, and that's maybe an interesting strategy to look at as well.
I agree, and here I think the question that enters is, what about funding? Funding is a part of it, especially if we're talking about follow-ups. And when you fund as a corporate, what's your signaling if you don't fund some startups, etc.? But I think maybe we'll talk about it after that. As you know, I believe there are many entrepreneurs here in the room. Any entrepreneur raise your hands. There are a few. So, you know, there are all the regular do's and don'ts, but from your point of view, like 2 words about the do's and don'ts for an entrepreneur that is trying to access a corporate-backed accelerator, incubator, etc., etc.
So one thing that always bothers me with companies that come is, you know, we always, towards the outside, we boast about 8200 and how great our intelligent corps is, and etc. And one thing that baffles me is how poor the intelligence scouting level on the entrepreneur side. It's like people sometimes come and say, okay, I do something in finance, Yahoo has Yahoo Finance, then let's meet and do something together. Right? And I think that the best partnerships, that the ones that actually realize, and you have it from time to time, are the ones where the entrepreneur really internalize the needs of the big corporation. He understands the roadmap. He did his homework. He really understands the value that he can bring to, not to, you know, Yahoo in general or eBay in general, if, you know, they'll do a massive integration, but to the particular person in the particular group. How will he advance, you know, the quarterly or yearly goals of that particular group? And that is something that typically, I'd say many times, I see great entrepreneurs in every other aspect, like great in execution, great in product, that are not putting a lot of emphasis in doing their homework, figuring out what are the exact needs of the corporation and how are you solving a problem for them. And I think that's something that, you know, you can never work too little on that.
Well, I think it's sometimes difficult to work in partnership with startups and big corporations, because big corporations are sometimes a little complicated, and so my team is a small team and startup-minded, and they really want to try the best contact within the BUs within the company for the startups, and then do the follow-up. And I think that's very important, because big corporation may be sometimes quite time-consuming for a startup, and time is money, and time is essential, and so that's why we created this team. Because the time is not the same for for big companies and for startups.